Hey, why don't we go ahead and just get jump right in here. First, just full disclosure here, we are recording this. Post session, we will go and we will upload this similar to what we did with the quarterly webinar, which was a week and a half ago. It's on the ORS website under the ARPA SLFRF page. So what I'm going to do really quickly here is kind of kick us off, and I'm going to share out my screen. And so hopefully you guys can see this title page. Hank, is everybody seeing that? Excellent. All right. So again, welcome. We're here to talk about permitting through the lens of the ARPA SLFRF grant program. And you'll see the title here. It's really, we're hoping to change that culture of compliance. And this is a big step in that direction where we're going to have the likes of SCDOT, DHEC, and 811 speak to permitting, their purview, their responsibility, how they go about doing what they do, and give you guys some insights on when you need a permit and why. So the goal for today, again, is just to better understand those requirements from SCDOT, 811, and DHEC through the lens of permit compliance. And just full disclosure here, this presentation, it does not constitute an exhaustive list of potential permits that may be required for your project, right? This is really just a high level, get to know you type of a webinar, informational exchange to learn about what these agencies have to offer in terms of streamlining your process, because we all know that the clock is ticking. So our agenda today, we're going to talk about why we're here. Again, we're going to get into SCDOT right-of-way permitting, 811 dig permitting, DHEC permitting, and we're going to give you a little bit of an update here on the South Carolina Broadband Office side, how we want to see this information come through to us. We're also going to go ahead and do some Q&A. So chat has been enabled for all attendees. So if you have questions, feel free to drop them in. We're going to wait to the end, and then we'll cycle through all of those questions, and whatever the question is about, that appropriate entity will gladly respond. So why are we here? Well, in every single grant agreement that got issued a notice to proceed, on page 5, you'll find these two bullets. Research and complying with all local, state, and federal laws, codes, and regulations relative to the project are the responsibility of the grantee. That's our ISPs. And of course, also research and complying with all requirements of any local, state, federal agency or jurisdiction that regulates or governs the project, including but not limited to requiring all necessary permits, licenses, approvals, and agreements. Yes, that too is also the responsibility of the grantee. So our hope here is to give you guys some context. Again, this is a beginning, it's not an end. And I think things are going to continue to evolve, and you're likely going to need a lot more than just permits from these three entities to get your project in compliance. So with that, we're going to go ahead and I'm going to stop sharing, and we're going to kick off with SCDOT and allow them to go ahead and share out a slide deck that they've pulled together. So Glenn, when you're ready, you can feel free to go ahead and share your screen out and kick us off.
All right. Again, my name is Glenn Bramlett. I am the State Encroachment Permit Engineer for SCDOT. And just to give you some, some heads up on things. So as you know, if you do anything within SCDOT right away, it requires an encroachment permit. And so I like to tell people the encroachment permit is kind of like a permission slip. It's a permission slip for you to do something in the right of way. So you're well within your rights as a citizen to utilize it for driving or pedestrian purposes. But once you lay shovel to ground, that's when you need to get a permit. That includes driveways, it includes landscaping, lighting, anything like that. And in this case, it also includes any type of utilities, specifically broadband. So the encroachment permitting side of things is something that you'll have to start with, and starting with how can you get some more information, where do you begin? So if you go to our website, which is scdot.org, and you the quickest way is to go to this little link here. It says popular. So you click popular, and then down here at the bottom where you see permits, you can click on encroachment, and it will take you right to our encroachment permit website. From here, you can get some information on, exactly what is an incursion permit, how is an incursion permit obtained. There's some information there. We also have information regarding our incursion permit processing system, which is what we do for incursion permitting. So anything that you submit for incursion permits is going to be electronic. So the best way to start with that is, if you're not familiar, you've never used EFS before, this is where you'll begin. And down here on the website, you can see we have something for existing customers if you haven't saved a link, or if you're a new customer, you can go through this short little questionnaire type thing in order to find out, do I need to have an account? Am I a one-time use person? So on and so forth. So getting into the permitting itself, once you go through this, you're already going to know that you're probably going to need to get an account because it's something that you're going to have ongoing. Our one-time customers are mainly for people who are doing residential driveways, or maybe you just bought, a side business and you're going to get one driveway and that's all you're ever going to need. We have existing, or we can have as a one-time use. If you're doing broadband utilities, you're probably going to be having more correspondence. You're probably going to do this more than once, so you would need to get a login. So you'll click the login. You'll put in your login information and your password, and it'll take you to our incursion permit processing system. Now, my view may look a little different than yours. I have some other functions that you may not have, but one of the ones that you will have is, in order for you're a customer, and for you to be able to create a permit. So backing up just a little bit before we get into that, the broadband portion of or any utility permitting within SCDOT, there's some things that you need to keep in mind. First of all, if you are accessing SCDOT right away, you're putting utility in a right away, you need a permit. There may be instances where your utility is not actually on SCDOT right away, but you are having to stage your equipment within the right of way in order to access your utility outside the right of way. So if there's for some reason you can't get to your utility that's not on a right of way, but you're staging equipment, off the side of the road, and then accessing it that way, you still have to get a permit. So even though you're not going shovel to ground, you are still staging equipment within our right of way, and the DOT's #1 goal is safety of the traveling public. So that includes people on the roadway, and it also includes people in the right of way who are accessing utilities. So that's just as simple as a traffic control permit. So we just want to make sure that you're utilizing the correct MUTCD standards for traffic control, so that way your people are protected, and then we also make sure the traveling public is protected as well. So even though you may not be putting shovel into the right of way, if you're staging equipment within the right of way and accessing your utility outside of the right of way, you still need to get a permit. So the easiest way to look at that is, if you are short-term parked or long-term parked within the right of way, or you're digging in the right of way, you need to get a permit. And if you're not sure, the best thing to do is call somebody and ask. Let a district permit engineer know, or you can contact my office and explain what you might be doing, and we can tell you whether or not you need a permit. So that's the first key item. The second key item is broadband utilities. So we have a number of different utilities that can apply for a permit. Cedric and I actually developed for SCDOT a broadband permit, because we had so many inquiries about permitting broadband within the right of way, that we created its own special permit. And what we found was, there's a broadband permit, and then there's also instances where you may be running multiple miles of fiber optic broadband utility. So the way that it works is, usually, we've dealt with permits in the past where it's one location. So for example, a driveway can be placed at an intersection of something and something. So that's one key point. So we never had to deal with one driveway being in two separate counties or two separate districts. So what we found was that there could be instances where you're running broadband line and it could span counties. And in order to keep the paperwork down and having for you to apply for a permit in multiple different counties, so if you have one line of broadband that you're running, we don't want you to have to apply for 3 different permits if you're spanning 3 different counties. So we created a multi-county, same district encroachment permit. So the only caveat there is you can span multiple counties, but it has to be in the same districts. And that's just for our recording purposes and for the fact that some districts operate a little bit differently than other districts. Now, that's not to say that the rules are different or that they're going to review your permit any differently than another district, but each district permit engineer knows their district very well. They know what construction projects are coming up. They know what utilities are being done. They know the potential conflicts that might come about. So we let the district permit engineer make the decision for their district. So if you have to cross districts, we don't want for one neighboring district to make the decisions for the other district. So that would be the only area where you would have to get, say, 2 separate permits if you're crossing district lines. But if you're in District 3, which encompasses Greenville and Spartanburg, and you're crossing those 2 counties, but you're within that same district, that one permit would suffice. But if you cross over from District 3 into District 2 or something like that, then you would have to have 2 separate permits. So, and you can get some information there. We provided we did a document that gives you some information, and let's see if this comes up here. Let me know if you guys can see this. It's a multi-county, same district, fiber optic broadband encroachment application help guide. So this document, which we've shared with the ORS before, but if anyone needs a copy, you can contact me and I'll make sure that you get a copy of it. We developed this so that way it gives you a little bit of an understanding on what the broadband encroachment permit entails. The explanation again is what I just told you about crossing districts versus crossing counties. It also provides some information of, when you should do this, what references you should be looking for. All of the information that the DOT uses to review and process your permit is readily available to anyone who is applying for a permit. So we list those references in this help guide as well. We give you some information on what you should do before you should apply. The number one thing I can tell you is to communicate with the district and county. Before you go applying for a permit, the best thing that you can do for yourself and for us to make the process go as smoothly as possible is to reach out to someone first. Let them know, hey, I'm about ready to, lay, X number of feet of fiber optic broadband line, and what do I need to do? They can walk you through the process. They can let you know of any potential pitfalls. They can let you know of any conflicts, with construction going on, or any paving projects that might be happening. So that way you can plan accordingly. There's also links to the encroachment permit processing system, and anything else that you would need to have information-wise. We also walk you through the application process. So it tells you where you need to go, what type of permit you need to apply for. There's some screenshots. These are the exact same screenshots or screens that you would see within our encroachment permit processing system. The type of information that you need to put in there. We are detail oriented. So the more details that you can give us, the better. Think of it as, you can overshare and we would be okay with that. So the more information you can give us, the better it makes the process go, because we don't have to go back to you multiple times asking for more and more information. Before you submit, make sure that you're checking, all the locations, making sure that you're giving us as many details as possible. What to do if you have an underground encroachment versus an overhead encroachment. There are some stipulations there. We've outlined those for you as well. And then if you have any pole attachments, and then any additional information. So we spent a lot of time on this help guide to make sure that you had as much information as you needed. We've listed all the resource links that you would need. In addition to, we've got a district map. This is probably a couple of years ago we developed this. So we some of the names may have changed, but the addresses and telephone numbers are the same. So if you contact anyone on that list, just ask for the district permit engineer, and they will be able to help you. We've also included some information as far as, where the upper and lower state limit lines are, because you will have to, if you're going back in to do any kind of, once you've made the repairs, you need to reseed after you've dug up. So we've given you that information of what you need to put back down. And we've given you a checklist. So we feel like this is the most information that we can give you to get you on the way to help you through the permit process. For underhead and overhead encroachments. And then we've kind of walked you through the process of creating the application. And we'll go over this briefly as well, but at least this help guide kind of gives you an idea of what screens that you're going to be looking at, what to click on, what information to put in. So we've kind of gone through and make sure you have all that information. So that's the help guide. Again, if you need that, please reach out to me and I can get you a copy of that. We do not have it housed permanently anywhere on the website yet. We're working on that, so that way as we upgrade the version, then we can get you a new version out and you'll have it readily available. But if you see some information in there that doesn't look the same as what it is on the encroachment permit website, you just contact me and we can make those changes. But that help guide, we feel like would really be beneficial to everyone. So once you've logged on to EPS, you're again going back to that help guide, same screens. You're going to create a new application. And again, your screen may look a little bit different, but from here you'll just pick that you're a business or a citizen. And then from here, you should be able to, right here, the multi-county same district fiber optic broadband permit. Now, this is for specifically exactly what it says, multi-county same district fiber optic permit. The reason why this one is a little bit different than our standard, this one that says communications, this is our standard utility permit. So anyone like Duke Energy or anyone else who's doing a utility permit, that's the one that they would use. And those are, again, specifically single areas. Those are, pinpointed areas where you're doing work. If you have an area where you're doing a couple hundred feet of broadband, you'd say you're crossing a road or you're crossing, you're briefly going into the right of way and back out. I would go with this communications, this utility permit right here. The only other time that you're going to use that one, the multi-county same district, would be is if you have a very lengthy amount of fiber optic broadband line that you're running. Certainly you can use this one if you have a short section just to keep things simple. But and the intent was to that if you're running a lot of line and you need to cross multiple counties. Otherwise, you can use this communications utility permit, and it serves the same purpose. You can still use the help guide. All that information in there is still very useful. The checklist items, communicating, all of the links, those are all still very helpful to you when you're doing this. And again, if you have any questions, the best thing to do is reach out to someone before you make an assumption. So what I like to tell potential applicants, and this kind of applies to broadband utilities, but in another sense, it's more geared towards people putting in driveways. But we tell people to design from the inside out. So typically an engineer or a developer who's looking to put in something on a piece of property, they get a vision, I want to put a gas station here, I want to put a restaurant. And so they contact that, they do all the planning of the internal workings of how everything's going to work out. And then they come to us and say, hey, I want to get a driveway to access this. And then we have to tell them well, we can't give you the driveway there, but we can give you the driveway here. And then that forces them to change the internal working. So had they work from the outside in, starting with the driveway first, hey, can I get my driveway here? Then they know, okay, here's where I'm going to get it. Now I can do all of my internal workings. How that translates to the broadband area is that communication is key. So if you come to us first and let us know, hey, I'm planning on having some broadband work done. Here's where I'm looking to do that. Can we work with that? Now we can tell you, yep, this looks good, or we're going to have some conflicts with where you're going to be putting your line. Say if whether it's an overhead or an underground utility. So if you come to us first, you work from the outside going in, then that way you have the blessing from, kind of the blessing from the DOT. It says, yep, you're good to go. Now you can continue on with your planning phase. So that's probably in a nutshell the best advice I can give you. I know that there's kind of a little bit of a hierarchy of how permitting goes, but we all coherently and concurrently work with one another. So it's not to say that you have to satisfy everything that we want first and then go to everyone else. We try to work with all the agencies together. So, if you get something from ORS or something from 811 or from the local county office that says there's a conflict, communication is key. So let us know of any other outside conflicts, and then we can work with everything concurrently. Cedric, does that sound about right?
Yes, that's spot on, man.
Good. So if there's some questions, I would be more than willing to answer any questions. Otherwise, again, my name is Glenn Bramlett. I'll put my contact information in the chat so that way you have it. Also, I believe my contact information will be here on the WebEx. So if you have any questions, please reach out to me. We've developed this help guide in-house. We also did kind of a fiber optic broadband presentation that's PowerPoint. So if you want to, use that to inform some of your people internally, I can share that with you as well. So are there any questions?
All right, not seeing any in the chat right now, Glenn, but certainly anyone that maybe has a thought or a question at any point, feel free to chime in, and at the very end, we'll go through whatever shows up. So great talk. I did hear 2 actionable things here. Get a copy of the SCDOT permit help guide. So make sure that's out there for folks to consume, and then potentially get a copy or PDF of your PowerPoint that specifically speaks to broadband. So 2 huge helpful things to put out there to our grantees. So really appreciate that. Well, I tell you, I think it's time to maybe just switch gears here. And Misty, if you're ready, we'd love to hear from you and 811.
Can you guys see my presentation?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Let me start it out here. Give me 1 second. All right. I'm Misty Wise. I'm the Executive Director of South Carolina 811. And I've got a few specific slides I definitely want to go through with you guys as it relates to some of the pain points that I know you guys are already dealing with. I want to touch on volume, update tickets versus remark tickets, compliance reporting, and filtering. I know you guys are being asked to create some reports that are definitely complicated if you don't know how to use our new system within Exactix, and then damage reporting. So briefly, I just want to kind of take a look at that visual at the bottom right of the screen there. I need you guys to understand there's an enormous amount of volume happening in our network at any given time. This morning I went in and actually pulled a visual of all of the tickets that are listed as fiber optic tickets as far as doing install and repair for fiber in our state. There's over 10,000 tickets in our active system currently for that type of work activity right now. So as you well know, you're struggling to get tickets marked on time. You're having issues with different elements around which operators are doing that timely and which ones aren't. And also just kind of specifically addressing update tickets in general. Specifically, update tickets are to extend the life of the notice. If you need fresh paint, remark tickets are what you need to be entering for your notifications. Hopefully all of you are doing tickets online because that's an enormous amount of volume that we have now coming to the center as it relates to this type of work activity. So if you have not set up yourself in our ticketing system online, I please ask that you do so. A lot of the elements that I'm going to show you today are specifically referenced as far as utilization of that tool for external users. Update tickets specifically, you're going to start seeing some of the pop-up around updates and remarks within our Exactix system that address whether fresh paint is needed or not. And the system's intuitive in the fact that it's going to know whether you've checked yes or no to that as to which type of ticket you should be doing. So we're trying to educate people within the system. But if you need fresh paint, remarks is the ticket you need to put in. Update tickets, some member operators are only seeing those as an extension of the life of the ticket because that's what they're supposed to be used for. And so they may not mark those facilities unless you specifically use a remark ticket. So just keep that in mind as you're working through these fiber optic tickets that you're doing. Another element is we have on our website right now a stats page that shows essentially a whole lot of information. Some of it's related to damages, some of it's related to positive response. And I use this screenshot as an example of just kind of showing you all those areas in red are places geographically that we already know are issues with timely response. So you can kind of dig into those reports a little bit deeper. This doesn't give it down to the specific member operator level for obvious reasons, but you can see geographically as you start to approach some of these rural areas, they're already struggling with some of the volume that was in the system generally, let alone some of the fiber work that's going through those areas now. So please use that as a reference. And we're also expanding some of the reports in there to show if you have 5 operators on a ticket, how quickly it takes those individual operators to report. We have that internally that we're overseeing now, and we are looking to launch some of that information onto the website, onto this stats page. So I welcome use of that page for a number of different reasons. All right, worksite info. Hopefully, if you're working online, you understand, what our ticketing system looks like. Obviously, I have a lot more boxes on the side column there because I'm an internal user, but I wanted to show some of the nuances to what Exactix has offered different from what we had in our previous system. We now have the ability to add subcontractors to the list. The cool part about this tool is we do not want 50 people listed in the remarks section of a ticket showing all the different subs that work for you at any given time. That's not an effective use of this system. The current system actually gives you the ability to add multiple types of subcontractors and actually change them on the fly. So if you've given it to Joe's Boring Company one day and you have to change over to a different boring company the next day, you have the ability to go in and change those on the fly now in the new ticketing system. A couple other elements are around work types. I'm going to go over some specific ones that we're asking you guys to utilize as part of this process, but you now have 2 secondary, like a first primary and a secondary work type now. I recommend that you start using those, and I'm going to show you why here in a few seconds. As well as the job ID and the work being done for. If you guys are working with specific groups, whether you're the prime or the sub, utilizing those done for categories are a good way to filter out different types of work activities. The other thing is I'm seeing a lot of different work types around. I think there was around over 2,000 different types of conduit and install. I know you guys are using that as well as part of the fiber process. So you might not use fiber install and repair, you might be using conduit install and repair, etc. Again, I want to show you how these can be used as primary and secondary work types in order to effectively filter reports for yourself to make this process easier. All of this in utilization of these fields, while job ID isn't mandatory, it really helps you aid in querying data in a certain format so that you can pull a lot of the information that ORS is asking you guys to provide. So specifically right now in our system, you'll see these 3 different types if you type in fiber into the work type. Install and repair in a basic premise is going to show up, and then you also have fiber federal grant install and repair, fiber state grant install and repair. What we really want you guys to be using is one or the other of those grant options that you see listed there. And the reason is because it's really hard to filter out the types of work activities. So for example, there might be certain companies on the line right now that are doing maintenance and repair work on behalf of an operator group for routine work. And then you also might be doing state grant for the same operator. It's really difficult for you guys to filter out who you're doing work for at what, which tickets are for who, without utilization of these work types specifically, so that you can query out that data. So make sure that you're using federal or state grant install and repair of fiber as your primary. And then if you are doing conduit work on behalf of that, feel free to use that as your secondary work type. One of the views that we've created, and I'm going to show it to you here in just a second, is part of the filter view within Exactix. And I'm going to show you a couple of screenshots of this. We have something called the fiber compliance view. And this is something that every user will be able to see as an external user. It has ways that you can filter different categories like the job ID and the dig site centroid, which is essentially showing where the marking tool is on the ticket geographically. This is something that's valuable for ORS as we look forward to taking that ticket data and then plugging it into other tools that are easily seen from a geographic standpoint as to where the work is taking place. So here's a screenshot of Exactix. If you look at the top box there, you can see you want to go to the list view in order to get to this compliance viewer. The bottom screen shows it highlighted. You click the drop down. You probably see more on my list than you'll see on yours, but the fiber compliance view will be seen there. And you can see that there's a number of different filtering options. You can filter these categories that you see there by work done for or by. You can sort by work type. You can sort by a number of different elements, but that dig centroid is the far right column listed there. So if you look and just kind of get an idea, these are the categories just in a little bit cleaner view. You can see the number of days. You know, there's multiple variations in that drop down menu there, right where that arrow is. Ticket number, version number, when the ticket was taken. All of these reports can be exported easily into Excel. You can send these on to ORS, send them on to other work groups. But you can see here, when you filter and sort these lists, why a job ID utilization would be helpful. Now, if you have certain permitting or you're tracking these for the grant process, whether there's some order activity or order number or specific work activity number that you can associate to this fiber work outside of just the work type, there's additional ways that you can sort these so that when you export them, you can then separate your maintenance and regular activities from your actual fiber work. So that's why these are essential for utilization and keeping that information separate. The other part to this is we have customized training that we've built specific for this work group, and we highly recommend that you take that. There's a number of different elements around positive response, the filtering of these, damage reporting, and a whole multitude of information from a safety standpoint around fiber. Please make sure that you go onto our website, look at our public awareness page, and go to our training tools. I'm going to walk you through a little bit of a short video that shows how you get set up. This video doesn't have any sound, so just give me a minute to preview this, but it's going to take you to all the places on our website and into our Corsetra platform as to how you go about getting set up for this training. Maybe. Oh, hold on. Sorry, guys. Of course, the video is not going to show you because it won't play. Okay. I'll walk you guys through that at the end of this. So the cool thing about getting set up on what we call a level 3+ user is making sure that, one, you get your ticket numbers immediately. You have access to all the different ticket types that we manage within 811. You have endless reporting on the excavator side. You're able to extract out all the different stuff as far as the filters that I showed you. You're able to go in and see which tickets need positive responses, which ones, there's just again, I can sit here and talk all day about why online usage is important, but you have the ability to do damage tickets, process secondary actions like no-shows, updates, remarks, things of that nature. If you're not using this, guys, this is literally the best way that I can show you as to how to deal with all of the different elements that we've shown you here, as well as how to manage your tickets effectively. The other part that's good about this is we've seen over the last several years, we have a really good and thorough QC process with my team. And I want to make sure that you guys understand when we email out where there's been errors on tickets that we're doing that for the benefit of the users that are utilizing the tool in order to make sure that you're safe, that the right operators were notified, and that you're utilizing our tools effectively. Some of the tools that we've added along the way are used by our internal users currently. One of them is adding a service area. So I'll give you an example. If you're out in a new subdivision, a lot of times the lot lines and elements of that subdivision have not been loaded into our map database effectively. And you'll see that there are operators potentially that you see infrastructure built for, but those as-builts have not hit the operator's records on our side. And so they're needing to be added to the actual ticket itself. Well, currently we only allow a CSR to do that activity for you, but with utilization of this and good quality for those who are using tickets online, we want to be able to provide that service back to the users that are using our online tools and are doing good quality tickets as well. So that's one function that we've allowed as part of this process. If you're a level 3+ user and you're above a certain threshold from a quality standpoint, we will open these tools up for you to use. Another one is basically a long distance tool. If you are, let's just say, working in about a 10-mile track down a linear roadway, and you're wanting to mark out those tickets, you can essentially draw a line from point A to point B through that 10-mile distance, linear, and it will automatically break the tickets up into quarter-mile tickets for you. Again, the quality user is going to be able to utilize these tools. This is not a function that we turn on for everybody in our system, just for a number of different safety protocols. We want to make sure the quality of tickets you're doing is good before we start adding all these enhancements for you. So damage reporting, for those of you who don't know, damage reporting South Carolina, and that is also built inside our ticketing system. There's a drop-down menu there. Everyone has the capability to enter damages, and we ask that you do so. This isn't information that we share externally per se, but it is required for tracking. I know that it's something that the Office of Regulatory wants you guys to make sure that you're doing, and it's a pretty simple form drop down. You have access to go back and look at previous damage reports that you've put in, among other things there. So definitely utilize this system and make sure that you're reporting your damages. As far as contacting us, whether you guys are interested in getting set up on our online tools, we recommend our chat. That's super simple. There's places on our website I'm going to take you to right after I close this PowerPoint down. I'll take you to the website and walk you through how you get into our training. But if you're not set up on ticketing right now, where you can enter your tickets online, or maybe you're a lower level user and you want to upgrade to a level 3+, make sure that you chat with our help desk team or email them at support@sc811.com. As a last resort, you can use the phone as an option, but we definitely would rather see you kind of use those top two tools just from a volume standpoint. For us, it's easier to get to more users through these other means. So let me open up another page for you here. Give me 1 second. Okay. So if you go on to our main page, as far as getting set up for the training, I want to just kind of walk you guys through a few different elements of the website that are important. You know, we've got our slider here that's got most up-to-date information, but if you go to our education and outreach, click here. All of our tools, obviously we do a lot of in-person meetings, but in order to get the most out of our training, I highly recommend the 811 online training tool through Coursetra. We've literally got a database full of different options that will be available to any user that signs up for this training or any other within our system. If you've already set up in here to do a level 3+ training or what have you, you'll use the same login for that. You'll just be able to click on one of these, which we've got the fiber install training here at the bottom of the list. If you click on register, it's gonna, or even if you click on the button, it's gonna take you right into the Coursetra process. Now the other one, I've already got a user login. It is gonna ask you to get your account set up for Coursetra in order to do this, in order to register. That's kind of what the video, for whatever reason it wouldn't play, kind of walks you through going through the lines of questioning. We want to make sure that not only your Exactix account, but your Corsetra account are linked together. You need to make sure you use the same user ID and login for both systems in order to get set up on this. But once you register for that, it will take you right into this is in a different domain. It'll take you right into Corsetra to set up the training itself and then walk you through it. I want to say it takes a few hours to get this training done, but it is essential in all of the different elements that I've outlined here in the presentation, and definitely additional tools that will be beneficial for you. We also, like I said, do in-person training. I highly recommend this training. In and of itself is going to take you through all of the different elements around a level 3+ user, what comes with that process. I can't, again, give you enough examples as to why using the system in this regard is the best and most important way to do so. It gives you access to different types of reports and just a multitude of different elements within our ticketing system itself. Again, you're not going to be accessing all of these reports, but excavators do have several different types of reports that they can pull from in this menu and export easily to Excel and be able to provide those to ORS or other types of groups that you may be utilizing this process for. And I'll guess with that, leave you guys with any questions. Does anyone have any questions about what I've gone over today? This is kind of a speed racer version of what you guys need right now, but the training will go into a lot more detail as to how we want you to go about this process.
That was awesome, Misty. You guys have done a lot of work, and we really appreciate that. And just to add on to what you're saying in regards to this training, there's been discussion internally about folding that into our guidelines and our grant agreements as a requirement moving forward, that our grantees ensure that their contractors have that training because we believe that it's that important. So huge deal. Really appreciate the insight, and glad to see that you guys have these controls in place, similar to what Glenn has done with SCDOT, right? Which is hugely helpful for our grantees. So really appreciate that. Let's see, not seeing any questions still. We'll keep going. Christy from DHEC. When you are ready, do feel free to share, and the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you so much. And let me see if I can also share the right screen here. Sometimes these platforms.
Can you speak up just a little bit? I'm having a hard time hearing you. I'm not sure about anybody else.
Is this better volume-wise? Are y'all able to hear that? Let me see. How's the volume, Mike? Good. Okay, I'm usually not told that I'm too quiet in a room, so I'll try to make sure I keep my volume up for y'all as well. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. Again, I'm Christy Illenberg. I'm with DHEC's Environmental Affairs, and I'm the Director of Collaborative Partnerships. And this is just one way we're trying to partner with our economic development allies, our communities, our businesses, and all of those stakeholders across the state. Just as a big picture, you know, DHEC is the Department of Health and Environmental Control. We do have those parts of healthcare quality, public health, and environmental affairs that are all trying to help healthy people living in healthy communities. And one of the things I really saw, especially during the pandemic, during the early days of COVID-19 and beyond, is how important broadband is. So I appreciate this opportunity to connect with y'all, but I also appreciate the connections that y'all are helping build across the state for so many in our rural and underserved communities across the state. We see that as a great benefit of how across all parts of DHEC, we're going to be able to be better at sharing information. We're going to be better at community engagement when there's permitting decisions or environmental questions that are coming forth, and really how we can even do some applications as we move more permits to our e-permitting system, being able to help people who are in need of a septic tank or something for their property. Y'all are helping build that network. And so I just want to start off by saying how important these projects are and how important the work is that you're doing and how it's going to have a long-term benefit to so many across the state. So I did want to start with kind of that. I feel like in some ways I'm going to be a little repetitive of some of what we've heard from Misty and Glenn. But in the environmental affairs side, we do have regulatory responsibilities and permitting responsibilities. Not all of these are going to apply to the projects that you have, but we do have our Bureau of Air Quality for air permitting, especially air construction permitting. We have our Bureau of Land and Waste Management. So if there is something that is, kind of coming from the projects that you are doing from a soil side and you need to know how do we handle that waste management or that soil, you can also reach out to us for that. I think a lot of what we're focused on today is a little bit of our Bureau of Water and our ocean and coastal resource management side of things for our coastal counties. We also have our Bureau of Environmental Health Services, which is our regional network across the state. So because DHEC does have that presence across the state, there's always somebody nearby who may be able to help if you encounter something along the way. So let's talk a little bit more about these projects specifically. I know when we had a conversation a few months ago with ORS about this entity and these efforts y'all were taking, y'all were going to be pushing forth, there was that dig once approach. How are we going to make sure that when these projects are being done, that everything is kind of aligned? I think conversations like today help with that dig once approach. But, one of the questions, and I have this as Bureau of Water, but of course it can be with other utilities, as y'all are using those existing easements, is making sure you're considering, is this aligned with some other infrastructure improvements? That can really help from a timing perspective and a timeline perspective on our end. So if you are doing some work and there's an adjacent kind of water and sewer line project that's going forward, maybe make sure you're kind of coordinating and talking a little bit about that. And that can also help us be aware of how those projects might be working together. I think in very rare cases, you're going to have some, since y'all are working from existing easements, unless they're really expanding, you may need some wetlands questions that are asked or water quality certification questions that are asked. But I think the one that's really important is our MPDES stormwater permit program. So that's really when you have construction activities that are disturbing, they have a kind of a scaled approach, but as you start to become more than 1 acre, please reach out to us. There are MS4s across the state, and we love acronyms so much at DHEC. MS4s are those municipal separate storm sewer system designations. And what that means is there are times that your local government or your county government really takes the lead in these stormwater construction permitting programs. And then there are other times for all those other parts of the state that DHEC is really the lead. So when I looked at that kind of overall map of where these projects are done, certainly if you are in kind of in or near a metro area, you may be in an MS4 where you're not going to be coming directly to DHEC to work on the stormwater permitting, but you may be going to your county or local government. And if you are in a more rural, and I'm very much generalizing this, but there are a lot of designations that are out there, and we have that list on the webpage that stays up to date of who is an MS4 and who is not. So our stormwater webpage, and that is the long address of kind of the full landing page, I think is a really good resource for everyone on this call, because it does let you access that list of MS4 areas and see, am I going to be working with DHEC, or do I need to be talking to local government about this or county government about this, and coordinating that way. It also has some other great resources from kind of forms and applications, some tools, different questions that you may have. I think there's a lot of them that can be answered from that one site. And then we can make sure that if you have specific questions, that we're connecting you with someone from that program. I've got a few names at the end of this that I think are some really good resources that can be able to help. And then one of the roles I do, or some of my team do, is kind of in the Permit Central role. If you have some overall questions, we can kind of rule in and rule out what you might need from DHEC with some more specific conversations as well. If we go beyond Bureau of Water, I do want to mention, again, projects that are in those coastal counties. Those coastal counties are identified as Beaufort, Berkeley, Charleston, Colleton, Dorchester, Georgetown, Horry, and Jasper. Then you may have some additional considerations for what's happening with your permitting through DHEC. One is kind of a critical area permitting. This means if your project is actually in tideland critical areas or in or near a beach dune system critical area, there's actually a general permit program that I think would apply for any of those. So if you're getting a little further removed from the tidelands and the beach and dune systems, then the critical area permitting may not apply to you, even if you're still in one of the coastal counties. The part that will come in is whenever there is a permitting decision being made by DHEC in one of these coastal counties, there's coastal zone consistency that goes with our duties under the Coastal Zone Management Act. That coastal zone consistency is kind of an extra layer of how these projects are evaluated. And that is something that, again, our OCRM team can really work closely with you to make sure that we're doing this. Really, with all of these permitting areas, we do have a few overall considerations, and I'll talk about our e-permitting system overall. I do want to say kind of a timeline side. I think we heard Misty talk about the volume of things that they are working through at 811. We definitely have so much growth, so many projects, and so many different permitting programs and duties. I think the stormwater construction program, the last I checked, giving a longer lead time is always better. So reach out early and often to DHEC to see how this is going to work from a timeline standpoint. I think kind of a good rule of thumb for right now is to have a 2-month time window. You may take a little extra time, especially with coastal zone consistency when you're in those coastal counties. But again, making sure you work with us, talk to us early and often, we can try to help move through the permitting process with your projects as fast as we can. The how, we do have e-permitting tools. I'm going to talk about that in just a moment. I do think kind of what Misty was talking about, being able to name the project, if you can reference ARPA or ARPA SL, FRF, y'all might have a better way to say your acronyms. Forgive me, Mike, if I'm butchering that. But being able to add something to the name of that project may help us look at these. What's going to happen when something comes into e-permitting is we're going to assign that to a project manager or engineer that's internal to us. And so if we've got similar type projects that are going through similar type checklists, we can be able to assign those better to maybe make that process just a little more streamlined for you. So when you're doing the naming of the project, you can name it what you want and then maybe add another little extra, tag at the end. It'll help us be able to sort through things and assign it a little more accurately. And like I said, maybe help our process as well. And then there always are a lot of contexts for help. Let's talk a little bit about e-permitting. This is easy to reach from our webpage, our homepage of scdhec.gov. You can do a search for e-permitting, or there are a lot of tags really from the front page. And this is the main landing page. You can work through that system in different ways. You do need to, just like with Misty, you need to create that account. Make sure you're looking at kind of who's going to be the contact for that account. And you can actually, once you've created it, have secondary or extra contacts about a project as well. That's going to help us because you're going to get those notifications back and forth and really kind of streamline the process with DHEC. The other thing I'll say is that we have some great training programs that are online that are affiliated with this. And so make sure you're also using those e-permitting tutorials and tools. Give me 1 second, my voice is breaking up just a bit. Took a big gulp there. So yeah, we encourage you, just like Misty was saying, to use those tutorials, use those tools. And there are also a number of different help functions within e-permitting that can help you work through this. I think one of the things that jumped out at me, and Glenn, you spoke about this too, is that, some of the things that we are doing in e-permitting are very site specific and very site dependent. They're for one address in one county. When you're looking at these projects, we do recognize that this can be something that's going to be multi-county or expand longer, longer geographic areas. So there is a multi-county option and things that you're doing, and that'll kind of change the form as you're going in. Again, as with kind of Misty and Glenn, this is an internal screen for e-permitting, so it may be a little different from you. But what this can actually help you do, again, is put everything in one spot, get the updates as things are moving through the system, and be able to help us be able to help you a little bit better and connect better as well. Again, as great as e-permitting and those tutorials are, we do love the tutorials. We love an email, and I'll make sure you have follow-up information for everyone that can be helpful. Our Permit Central number is a great starting point when you don't quite know exactly who to go to or what permits you may or may not need, or sometimes rule out permits you don't need from DHEC, whether it's about this or other projects. We do have a phone number for that. We have an email address for that, and I'll make sure we follow up with all of those contacts. Our stormwater permitting program, John Poole is the lead of that program, always happy to help, or his team is happy to help you. We also have a coastal stormwater permitting program, which is Shannon Hicks, who can be a great resource. But I was trying to keep the slide a little simple today. When you're talking about our Office of Ocean and Coastal Resource Management, or OCRM, when you're in those coastal counties doing work, Barbara Neal is great for general questions and trying to see if something's going to apply or not apply and rule things in and out. And then Chris Stout is really helpful in looking at that coastal zone consistency and where things are. So we want to make sure that we're able to continue to connect with y'all by phone, by email, by e-permitting tools, and be able to help in any way we can. And again, look at how y'all are coordinating with your local and county government and other entities as well. That's all I have for kind of an overview, more than taking us through that e-permitting process step by step.
Outstanding. Well, Christy, that was awesome. And I got to be honest, through all three panelists, I heard three overarching things. Number one, every one of our panelists, that is to say our partnering agencies, they have online tools, and they're highly recommending our grantees use those tools, right, to streamline this process. That's huge. All three of our panelists also have online training materials and guidance, everything from online training that would take you through a test to guidance documentation, so on. Last thing I heard, which is really key, is early coordination, right? Don't guess. If you have questions, reach out to our partnering agencies. They're here to help. And this was great. I've got a handful of additional slides I want to share out to our group here, and then we'll kick this off with any additional questions that come in. Again, feel free to use the chat, add any questions you'd like at any time, and at the end, we'll go through them all. All right. So now the question, of course, begs, how do you report all of this wonderful information back to the ORS, right? And before I go any further, just Captain Obvious here, we've notified all the utility companies, we've notified all of our partnering agencies, state and federal, that these projects have been funded. There's a map service out there with all 53 projects. Everybody knows the geography. And I'm sharing that with you as a matter of transparency, because there is no way you're going to get away with just going and doing it without somebody catching eyes that, you did it or you didn't do it, and you didn't get the permit that you needed, right? So just know that all eyes are on us. We've invested $130 million across the state to get broadband to those that need it. And again, the eyes are on us. So please keep that in mind. What we expect to see and how we hope to have this information come to us is through our quarterly reporting process. On our quarterly report, we have a compliance tab, and each row should be a permit, right, that you would be getting. The only exception that we're willing to go for right now is Misty and 811, where if you log into their system and you can get an export of the permits that you ultimately obtained for that quarterly reporting period, you can do that, and you can give that to us separately in lieu of adding it to this particular document. Other than that, if you got a permit for the project during that quarterly reporting period, it must show up in this tab under the compliance tab. If we find that you're halfway through your construction build based on the quarterly report and you filled out nothing on this tab, you can expect a phone call. And if the phone call comes back and you try to tell us, well, we didn't need any permit, what have you, we're going to start to dig deeper. And if it means we have to reach out to our partnering agencies to get a final call here on whether or not a permit was required, we will be doing that due diligence. We will be following through. So, the big thing is transparency. If you don't know, make sure you reach out and be prepared for us to audit some of these permit numbers, right? So if I see, for example, you got a DHEC permit, you put a permit ID in there, don't be surprised if the South Carolina Broadband Office reaches out to our partnering agency at DHEC and we say, hey, we've got this project. Can you just verify this permit ID is in your system? Yes, no. Fraud that's a non-starter now. And I realize no one on this call is going to do that, but just know that we are watching and we will be auditing this information as it comes through, and doing nothing is not going to work. You guys have to fill this out. It's a requirement. What constitutes compliance? So you guys have probably seen this from our presentation a week and a half ago on the quarterly reporting. It hasn't changed. As you saw on that original slide, you guys are required to follow all of the laws and regulations, including permitting. And if you don't follow those, you are in breach of this contract. So it's a big deal. And we don't want to have to throw the hammer down, but we absolutely will, because we have to follow the rules and the laws and stay in compliance with what's out there and mandated. So a quick reminder for everyone, your first quarterly report is due on April 28th. That's about a month away from now. All of this information is due. For those that didn't give us a complete list of 811 contractors, you have to submit that information to us in this next quarterly reporting cycle. Do not forget to do that. If we get another TBD, we will be reaching back out. And again, just be clear about what it is that you're giving us. You don't have to give us the actual permit right now. You just have to log that permit number. And at some point in the future, we may come back and ask for additional information or a copy of the permit. Last thing, we did go back and we revisited a handout that we had previously under the Rural Broadband Grant Program for a list of contacts. Again, this is not exhaustive, but these we have checked back with all of these partnering agencies and confirmed that these folks are the correct folks to reach out to via email if you have any questions with regard to permitting. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing, and let's go ahead and open it up to Q&A. We do have one question here already. And Misty, this question is going to be for you. It says, can you touch on a scenario where a contractor has installed fiber as they move on through the area, someone else calls in a ticket? The fiber still belongs to the contractor, but they don't get notified to protect their fiber before it is turned over to the ISP.
Yeah, that happens quite a bit, and unless the folks that have installed that in between the time it's as-built and it was actually put in the ground, if they're not in our database to be notified when excavation's taking place, there's definitely potential for liability and damages that occur in that scenario. I know that we've had certain fiber to the premise folks that are doing cell tower work and things of that nature that have joined our association in order to be notified of that, but I don't know that that's necessarily going to fit the scope of what this project entails, but that is truly the only way to be notified if additional excavation is happening once you've already put the plant in the ground, whether it's been turned up or not. I know it's a very complex process. Outside of an explanation for that, I'm not sure that necessarily answers the question, but it's definitely a flux.
Got it.
My recommendation is to join our association if you're concerned about a big lag in time between the time it's handed over and the time that it was put in the ground. I'm not sure if that particular scenario is where the fiber's already been turned up or not. But it is definitely an issue, because if it can't be physically marked, it's kind of pointless to try to join our association and ensure that you're being notified when excavation is taking place. I'm not sure that answers the question, but I'm happy to, if somebody wants to reach out to me with specific questions regarding that, I'd be happy to answer them as best I can.
Excellent. Any other questions from our attendees? Again, the floor is yours, guys. We're here for you. So certainly feel free to reach out to our panelists here. Make any questions you want to make available here. We'll be happy to answer them as best we can. And I guess while we're waiting for questions to come in either through chat or the Q&A, Cedric or Hank, do you have anything additional you want to share back out to the group here?
Well, the only thing I'll say is that it's going to take a collaboration of everybody on here to make this successful. Obviously, we want to bring broadband to any citizen in South Carolina who wants access, but we want to do it the right way, which is why we set this up for all our internet service providers. There's a certain way we have to do this, a certain way we have to report it, and we're going to do everything we can to keep it in compliance, but we need y'all's help. You know, what brought this meeting about was really Misty coming to us and talking to us about some damages and things between the contractors and the subs that are involved in this process. And then we started thinking we need to put this group back together as we have more projects out there, because we do know that when you have a sub of a sub, when they get out in the field, they start doing whatever it takes to get the job done, and it may not be correct. So we really want you guys to put an emphasis on making sure that your subs are well equipped and understand what is necessary to come into compliance once they get out in the field. Obviously, we're going to go to the main ISP company name to be held accountable for whatever actions they take. So just keep that in mind as well.
No, that's good stuff. And look, if you know, a permit is what is slowing up your project and it's going to affect your ability to deliver by December 2024, then so be it. You know, if the project has to slip, key, like always, is to communicate, be clear with ORS and explain to us, hey, we're working through a permit with DHEC or whatever the scenario might be, and we're going to work with you. Where it's going to get problematic is if it just goes radio silence, if we hear nothing, if you're not reporting back out, right? Because I'm hard to believe that of the 53 projects we awarded 130 million, that you'd ever have a project with 0 permits. I mean, I think it'd be highly unlikely, especially because a lot of the work is happening right in the state highway right away, right? It's happening on a state road. So, you know, just keep that in mind and make sure that you're transparent with what it is that you're doing, what you're finding. All right, so we have another question here. I don't see a category on the report form for pole attachment agreements. If we attach to a third-party pole owner, are we required to provide evidence of these approved applications?
And I'll answer that question. The answer is yes. If you're, and Glenn, you can speak to this as well. If you are attaching to a third-party pole, you do have to at least supply a letterhead email from the company you're attached to that they give you permission to be there. That's the only way we're going to know that you're allowed to be attached to that pole. We don't necessarily have to have the whole pole attachment agreement, but we do have to have something with, at least with a whole letterhead from that company, basically saying we give them permission to attach to our pole in order to provide service.
Right, so you have to have it for SCDOT, and then for compliance reporting for ORS, what you would do is just choose the other option under permit type, and then in the comment indicate that it is a pole attachment permit.
Yeah, that's correct. Cedric hit the nail on the head. Also, I noticed he's in on our call here, Mr. Robert Riggs. He is the state's utility person. So if you have any specific questions regarding utilities, Mr. Robert Riggs is the person that would be able to give you some direct quotes, some direct links, information that you would need. Just as for your own information, whenever permits are submitted, and if they have to come up here to our headquarters office for anything, Mr. Robert Riggs, we usually send it to his office as well for him to look over, so that way he can make sure that the utility accommodations manual is being abided by as well. But yeah, Cedric hit the nail on the head.
I appreciate that, Glenn. Thank you. Other questions? And this one.
Robert here, if I may interject also that we get some permits that are not in the utility company's name, but in the subcontractors or the consultant or somebody to that effect, but the permits need to be in the actual utility company's name.
Give them the reason that Glenn and Robert answered for DOT on this.
All right, we have another question for Glenn and Robert. What if the third-party poles are located on private property and not public right-of-way?
Can you repeat that question again?
Sure. So the question is, what if the third-party poles that they're going to connect to are located on private property and not public right-of-way?
I'll let Robert add to this as well. But again, if you're not on DOT right away and there's no pole agreements or something that was there from the past or whatever, and you're not going to be staging within SCDOT right away, on the surface, I'm going to say you don't need a permit. However, if you have a connection from one pole that's not on right away to a connection that is on right away, then that's where, we would need to at least review it. Robert, you want to make sure I'm not stepping on any toes here?
No, especially that last part you said kind of captures it, so it may be on a case-by-case situation on that and how it affects the poles and the line, the facility that is in the DOT right away, whether you need it or not.
And just as a reminder too, guys, think about it too, that you may be on a county road, there may be some kind of county permit that's necessary, some kind of ordinance or whatnot. Glenn, we can speak to that as well, as not everything is maintained by a state highway either. So keep that in mind. You may need that county permit.
That's right. And, as we've already kind of iterated several times, is that communication is key. So, when in doubt, just ask a question. It's better for you to ask the question and get the right answer than to assume that you don't need a permit and then find out that you do need a permit and then it holds up your project. So, that case by case, if there's something that's, that you have a question on, just ask. I see a question here about online training. We don't have any online training specifically for broadband permitting. There are some small training videos on SCDOT's commercial permit website that shows how to apply for a permit and when you might need it. However, training specific to broadband permitting, we do not have currently. However, if that's something that the masses would feel they would benefit from, then that's certainly something that we would pursue.
Mike, I was going to kind of throw this out here because I was asking Glenn that question. We do have the capability to tie in additional modules to our training because we do have a good tracking mechanism around who's taken it, how far did they make it through, what are they struggling with. I'd be happy and I would actually welcome the opportunity to work with someone from DOT, whether it be Glenn or his team, to put something together that could also go in cohesion with what we were already put out there for the fiber group. I think that if the group thinks that that's valuable, that is definitely a route we can take.
No, that would be great. We'll definitely take guys in action and circle back on and see what it might take to get that done.
Because I actually think there were some road setup things that I've seen the DOT do training on as well that would also be beneficial for this group.
Yeah, Missy, if you want to reach out to me, we can collaborate and get some information.
Love it. All right, we have another question. If we are off right of way with our construction, is proof of private easement required?
Can you repeat that?
That's what it sounds like, because they wouldn't. I think the argument is that they wouldn't need a DOT right of way permit, right?
Yeah, that is the argument. They wouldn't need a DOT permit. I mean, I've seen easement documentation. I mean, just writing it up saying it's on private easement should be enough for our agreement.
Yeah. I mean, if it's a blank, and again, I'm thinking about this in general terms, and I'm also jogging back to the comment that I would find it hard to believe that any one of these projects wouldn't have at least one permit. If you run into that situation where you're off right of way with your construction, yes, give us some sort of proof of private easement. That way we know you're in compliance, right? I mean, nobody wants to catch it like it's a big gotcha moment. We just want to make sure that we're following the rules and the laws of the land. And You know, if you're on private easement, and that means you don't need a DOT right-of-way permit, great. Give us the proof that it's on private easement, and you're covered. Now, that still may mean, though, that you might need a county permit, right? If it's a private road, maybe not. But again, I'm thinking that that would be the exception probably, and not the rule. I think more cases than not, it's going to be running down a DOT right-of-way. Yeah. Great questions, by the way. Any other questions? We'll give it another minute or so just to see if anyone else thinks of anything else before we all disband. But I do want to just take a moment and just give a big shout out and hearty thank you to Glenn, Christy, and Misty. Really appreciate you guys taking time out of your schedules to come and talk to our grantees about all things permitting for which you're responsible. It's a big deal, and I love how like-minded everybody really was, right? I mean, those 3 points, I mean, it resonates. So everybody sees the value of what we're doing, and just really appreciate your support. Okay. So the question came up, has this been recorded so I can share with my team? The answer is yes. We are recording this, have recorded it. We will work to get this uploaded, if not by close of business, tomorrow, right? The latest. We'll get this uploaded for folks. And what I will do is commit to trying to reach out to our colleagues, our panelists, and see if I can get a PDF of their slides. We'll bring them in, and we'll also add them to the ARPA SLFRF page for everyone's use. So give it another minute. We'll see if any other questions come up. So what we're going to do is we had another question come in. Where will it be available? It'll be on the ARPA SLFRF page. I can show you guys where that's at, so you know. Give me 1 second. Share out my screen. So if you go to the ORS page, go to investments. We go to state investments. Right here is the ARPA State Fiscal Recovery Funds page, learn more. You'll find them down here in these ribbons. So presentation materials, everything that we've got on here, including our video from a week and a half ago about the quarterly reporting, it's all available on this page. So anything specific to this grant program, this grant cycle, you will find on this page, again, including the PDFs of the slide decks and so on. We will also try to consolidate the questions that we do have, and we'll formulate answers, and we'll actually publish that as well as an FAQ, similar to what we did a week and a half ago. So any other questions? All right. Well, hey, with that, I'm going to give you guys a half an hour or so of your time back. And again, just a big thank you to our panelists. Really appreciate you guys taking time out and sharing with us, you know, how to get through this process in a streamlined way. I know I found it beneficial just to understand perspectives and the best way to get in and get what you need and move on and, you know, get broadband out there to the people that need it. So any other closing comments, guys? We're good? No. All right. We'll leave you there. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful day.